You're going to learn the 10 wave control mistakes you must avoid if you want to rank up. From how to both poke and push at the same time, setting up easy level 2 all-ins, to how not letting your outer towers fall on purpose might actually be what's losing you games, and so much more. For example, did you know if the opponent is leashing for their jungler, you can actually walk up to the wave like so and auto-attack a ranged minion. This draws temporary minion aggro, causing the minions to aggro you. You then back off and let the wave reset. Instead of splitting damage evenly across the 3 melee minions, the enemy wave will now focus fire 1 melee minion down a few seconds faster than usual. This way, your opponent misses experience on the first wave while they leash. This helps you spike levels before them later on in the lane. And this is actually step 8 in our brand new wave control course for season 14. This course has been getting perfect 5-star reviews by players just like you, and is a part of our massive update adding all brand new courses for season 14. To celebrate this, we're offering an exclusive discount you can only access through the link below. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to get the rank you've always wanted this season. Alright, starting with the number 1 mistake I see every player make, they start their lane and start using abilities on the minion wave. The reason why players make this mistake is, as you can see, Lux doesn't do anything to punish Ahri's W being on cooldown. However, high elo players know auto attacks are what get you the push advantage early on, as they do more damage than a single spell. So if an enemy wastes their one spell trying to push, well, it's an easy punish with your own spell. And ideally what you should be aiming for in this early laning phase is what's called a double value spell. You try to apply auto attacks to the wave, and then use your abilities to both land harass and push the wave at the same time. This way, you not only poke the enemy down, but guarantee the push advantage to set up the level 2 spike and potential all-in. Now, here's the second wave control mistake players make. Ashe and Seraphine start by getting the push advantage level 1, then they hit level 2 first. All seems good, but they aren't able to push that advantage into anything, and so they just kind of run out of steam. They don't get anything done until eventually they just have to take a bad recall timing in the end. You can see the same example here. Set gets the early push lead as well as a health lead. Third wave arrives, he crashes it into the tower, and a whole lot of nothing happens while Sion is able to recover. The mistake here is not executing what's called a cheater recall. A cheater recall is when you get the minion advantage on the first wave, and as the second wave arrives, you look to maintain your minion lead. Then, when the third wave arrives, push as quickly as possible. Now, you can take a free recall while your opponent is distracted with the wave. You'll then have an item advantage with full health and mana, so walk back to lane. The wave will have rebounded back to you, so you can now freeze and force trades with your item advantage, often setting up a solo kill. And this is a perfect transition to the third wave control mistake players make. It's surprise, surprise, they actually mess up this cheater recall when they try to use it, and it's due to a simple fix. Here, we see Fizz get the early push lead and hit level 2 first. Now, as you were just taught, the second wave arrives. When you've cemented an early push lead, you have to stop damaging it and instead look to just last it. This way, you extend the amount of time you're level 2 over the opponent, giving you more chances to land damage before your recall. Fizz doesn't do this, and instead pushed way too hard. You have to avoid this scenario where you recall on the second wave. When you do this, you literally can't buy any items. And so you'll just end up back in lane, level 2 to level 3, while having no item advantage or have landed enough damage to have a health advantage. Now, you may be wondering, so are you supposed to cheater recall every game? Well, no, and that's actually where mistake number 4 comes in. Here, Ashe and Janna are able to secure the push advantage early and hit level 2 first. They do a good job slowing things down once they have that push advantage, so they don't push the wave, setting up a potential cheater recall. Now, let's pause here. So, in spots like these where the enemy is really low on health and you're high on health, it's often best not to cheater recall and instead do what's called a rebound. A rebound occurs when you push a big enough wave into the tower that the enemy's incoming wave gets stuck on it. This causes the next reinforcing waves to meet very close to the enemy's side of the lane, and because of this, all following reinforcements from the enemy get there first, damaging the wave sooner than your minions, causing it to push back to you. So essentially, when you push a big wave into a tower, it then effectively rebounds off that tower back to you. Great, so back to our earlier clip. Instead of cheater recalling, we can see how Ashe and Janna opt into a rebound instead, and once that rebound begins to take effect, you can see how it's checkmate on Smolder and Morgana. The wave is pushing away from them, and so they have to now move up to last it, or just give up a ton of gold. And when they do move up, that's when you can execute the all-in with your HP advantage. A good way of thinking of when to rebound or cheater recall is based on how much of an HP lead you got in those first 3 levels. If you got no HP lead or a very minor one, it's best to cheater recall. The item advantage you get from recalling helps to compensate for the wave that will be rebounding against you. However, if you got a big HP lead, it's often best to play out the lane with a rebound, since it can let you fine-tune your wave control as you thin out minions on the rebound and prevent the opponent from building too big of a wave on you. Now, mistake number 5 has to do with not understanding that the early game is often about taking turns. So here, you can see how Renekton's minions are basically even with the enemy. Well, just like we taught you earlier, when a wave is closer to one side of the lane like this, the reinforcing wave will arrive sooner and cause it to push. So, when a wave is outside of your tower like this, it gives you the option to build up a big wave through a slow push. This is so overpowered in the early game, as minions are not only incredibly strong early on in terms of damage, but that minion lead you build up in a slow push means you'll also be ahead early levels. And so, if you're Yone, you have to recognize when someone is building a slow push on you, and recognize it's basically their turn. You need to play safe and just patiently wait for the wave to arrive at your tower, even if that means you give up a few CS. The reason for this is if you make this mistake of trading into an enemy's slow push, basically, when it's not your turn, well, even if you live, it's game over. If you try to recall, they shove the wave and you lose all the minions to the tower, and if you stay, well, they're going to tower dive you once the wave crashes since you're so low. And losing a big wave that was built up over a slow push basically instantly loses you your lane, as you're behind so much XP and gold. Well, remember, when a big wave gets pushed like this, it creates a rebound. So now the enemy arrives back in lane massively ahead and has an easy freeze where you can't walk up to the wave without dying. In this case, you can see how Renekton is level 6 to level 4 off of this one play and the game's over. All because Yone didn't understand you can't trade into slow pushes early on. And by the way, if you want to learn more about trading, then I highly recommend taking our brand new trading course at Skillcapped. It will teach you everything you ever need to know about trading in just 12 easy steps. And you can check it out with the discount link below. Alright, now for the wave control mistake number 6. The mistake players make has to do with misunderstanding freezing. You see, although in theory freezing sounds great, you just make sure the enemy's wave is bigger than yours and you can zone them from last hits forever, right? Well, in actual games, it's incredibly difficult and rare to maintain a permanent freeze. Instead, here's how you need to be looking at freezing. First, you have to understand there's no point in trying to freeze when you're behind, as the opponent can simply break it. Instead, you freeze when you have an advantage. That way you force the opponent to overextend up the lane so you can then trade with them. For example, here Fizz has a lead on Orianna and so has set up a freeze to try and force her to overextend. Great, we get the trade, but take a look at the wave. We no longer have a freeze. This is because often when you trade, your abilities will damage the minions and you'll pull minion aggro, which means they're focusing you instead of your minions. Basically, it's extremely common that when you freeze, you'll only get around one trade opportunity, as that trade has a side effect of then breaking your freeze, but that's okay. As long as it was a good trade, you can now turn it into a slow push. And just like we just taught you in the last section, it's checkmate. The opponent can't stay, or they'll be tower dove on the big wave you build up, or they have to recall and give up the wave to the tower anyway. And now that Fizz has a slow push, it means he's building up the minion lead to secure level 6 first, which sets up an all-in, into then being able to push the wave into the tower to deny minions and set Orianna even further behind. Now for our 7th wave control mistake. This has to do with when you have either the range disadvantage early or simply a weaker level 1 matchup. The worst thing you can do is what this Talon does in this game. Since Ahri has the range advantage, it makes it easy to secure an early push lead. This means you have to avoid trading, as even if you get what looks like on the surface is a good trade, it really won't matter. The enemy will just spike level 2 on you, and then you can't even capitalize on any health lead anyways. And remember, they always have that option of crashing the wave to set up a rebound on you, which means suddenly you're low on health from trading early, with the wave pushing away from you, forcing you to overextend if you want to last it. Again, this is a checkmate position. Talon either has to take a bad recall timing, where his wave kills enemy minions denying him the gold and XP, or he'll stay in lane, Ahri sets up a freeze, and looks to land poke and set up an all-in. Instead, you should be playing these matchups like this Fizz. Sit back, give the push lead to the enemy, and try to take hardly any damage. Once the wave crashes, you'll equalize in levels, and the enemy will be overextended, vulnerable to trades. And that rebound now turns into a slow push for yourself. So, if the enemy makes the mistake we covered earlier, not understanding they shouldn't trade into slow pushes early on, well, they'll be overextended up the lane, making for easy trades, and setting up that checkmate position where they can't recall without giving up a big wave, baiting them to stay, and getting you free kills. Great, so we've talked a lot about freezing and slow pushing. The 8th wave control mistake players make is doing this too late into the game. You see, once champions hit level 7, they'll have 4 points in what is often their main wave clear ability. They'll also have purchased more items, and so it makes it far easier to push away fast around this level 7 breakpoint. For example, in this game, despite Renekton using freezing to set up kills on Volibear and slow pushes to set up tower dives, as the game gets later, due to how fast you can clear waves, it can often be better to do a hard push into roam. In this case, using the timing window to first clear vision, and then the wave after being able to arrive to the Void Grub fight first, swinging it in his team's favor. Pushing into roaming can be a more effective tactic for pushing your lead, especially if you're a melee champion who can't really siege towers. Here's another example though. Caitlyn has 4 kills with a wave pushing into her. She could thin the wave and set up a freeze if she wanted, but she's level 7 and it's getting later into the game, and so she decides to push instead. Now, I just want to mention why freezing isn't ideal as the game gets later. The whole idea of freezing is that you're denying minions from the opponent, as their minions kill yours, forcing them to move up to last hit or give up the CS. The problem is, later on, giving up CS like this isn't as punishing. Minions don't scale, they give the same amount of XP at level 1 or level 18. At the same time, it requires more XP to level up the higher in level you are. This means level 1, giving up 2 waves could be the difference between being level 1 or level 3. At level 7 though, giving up 2 waves could have no impact on your level at all. Players will also have access to more items, their ultimates and boot upgrades, letting them roam faster while also hitting those roams harder. So while you're freezing and they're losing a wave or 2, they might be getting kills and objectives elsewhere. So long story short, hard pushing will pin the opponent down, preventing that scenario. It also lets you go for turret plates before they expire at the 14-minute mark. Ignoring the kills, just look at how much gold turret plates can get you. Caitlyn gets 1 turret plate on this push, each plate is worth 125 gold. Gets back to lane, next push gets 2 plates, that's another 250 gold, into the final plate and first turret bonus for around another 425 gold. That's 800 gold generated by pushing for plates before they fall, while also getting to pin the opponent down. And this leads into our 9th mistake. Players don't understand one of the main reasons taking outer towers is so powerful, and it actually has to do with the minion waves. Here, notice how Ahri has taken the outer tower already, and that when she pushes this wave, she's able to push it much deeper to the enemy's second tower. This means it's going to take Talon longer, since he has to push back a further distance to start threatening either Ahri's tower or denying the wave to the tower. Meanwhile, Ahri gets to execute this roam and get all the way back to lane without losing a single minion. This is all because the outer tower was down, giving her that longer timing window after pushing. And this applies even more to side lanes where lanes are longer. Outer towers being down means you can push much deeper, giving you a way longer timing window to roam before you have to get back to your tower to pick up the wave being pushed back in that lane. And this is actually a perfect transition into our final mistake. Sometimes it's actually good to let your outer towers fall. You see, as the game gets later, if outer towers are still alive, they can often be great points of attack. Champions will start outscaling towers, and it makes tower dives way easier. And often players get baited trying to defend those outer towers, when even if you won lane or are ahead, it's perfectly normal for your outer towers to fall as the game progresses, especially if the enemy team sends multiple champions. Additionally, having your outer tower fall, even if it's your own tower, still gives you a longer timing window to roam off your pushes, since now the enemy takes longer to push the wave back to your second tower. Basically, you want to be careful you're not making the following mistake. Here, Ahri pushes out the side lane into recalling. This is all fine. But as she heads back onto the map, she sees the enemy Smolder pushing the wave back to her outer tower. Now, at the same time, her entire team is looking to collapse on a fight happening topside. Keep in mind, when Ahri pushed out this wave, it lured Smolder there, guaranteeing she'll have that number advantage elsewhere on the map. She makes the mistake of giving up what would have been a number advantaged winning fight topside in order to pick up a few minions in the next wave and defend the outer tower. To be clear though, it's not that we're saying picking up this wave is bad. If there was no other good opportunities on the map, by all means pick up the free minions and defend the tower. However, if you only tunnel vision on holding these outer towers in your side lanes, you'll find it very difficult to have a large enough timing window to push your lead, and instead you'll constantly find yourself pinned down trying to pick up these waves. You instead want to look for chances where you can consciously sacrifice that outer tower to get a number advantage fight elsewhere. That way, you'll still come out ahead from the winning fight, and you now have an even longer lane for the remainder of the game. This will then give you a bigger timing window the next time you push into roam, since the enemy will have to push back much further to your second turret. Now, if you truly want to become a master of wave control, there's nothing better than our brand new wave control course at skillcap.com. We take you step by step, teaching you everything you need to know about wave control in League of Legends. And this course has been getting perfect 5-star ratings by players just like you, and is a part of our massive update adding all brand new courses for season 14. And to celebrate this, we're offering an exclusive discount link through the link below. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to get the rank you've always wanted this season. All right, and that will do it for this one. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.